morning, viewers. Welcome to today's live streaming, and I am your host, Ozobulu Solomtochukwu. Today, we'll be looking at the position of the law on HIV discrimination in Nigeria. According to UNODC report, Nigeria ranks the third most country with HIV infections. And it has been observed that stigma and discriminations, they are the propellers to the increase in HIV infection in Nigeria. Because when someone already knows that they are going to be discriminated or stigmatized, the person would hardly go to the hospital to get tested. The person will hardly go to the hospital to get the antiretroviral drugs that HIV or AIDS affected persons need to boost their immune system. Now, based on our topic for today, we need to understand what discrimination really means. Discrimination primarily occurs when someone is denied of their basic rights. According to the Constitution, everybody is entitled to be free from discrimination. That is one of the human rights of every individual. But often seen, people still discriminate and stigmatize. I know that when the news about HIV came, there were so many misinformation that led people to be afraid and so many other things. But things have moved beyond that. We are in a different era, and with the antiretroviral drugs, it reduces the transmission of HIV from one person to the other. But yet the discrimination associated with HIV still persists, and that's what led to the enactment of a law by the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2014. So this law is Anti-Discrimination Law, the HIV Anti-Discrimination Law 2014. And the primary objective of this law is to eliminate all forms of discrimination based on HIV status. Whether it's the actual HIV status of the person or it is a perceived HIV status of the person, this law covers the elimination of all forms of discrimination. Pardon me. And then this law equally was made to provide an enabling environment for HIV affected persons to thrive. But it will surprise you that regardless of this law being in place, people still go ahead to discriminate persons living with or affected by HIV and AIDS. Then it might it might make you ask, who does this law apply to? According to the acts, which have been domesticated by some states, this law applies to every individual. It applies to corporate bodies, to private or public. So it applies to you and I, generally. So nobody is expected to discriminate another on the basis of their HIV status. And according to the law, it is illegal. It makes it different from the normal wrong and appeal to human conscience. It makes it illegal to discriminate one on the basis of their HIV status. According to Section 22 of the HIV Anti-Discrimination Act, it provides for fines and terms of imprisonment for those who discriminate on persons living with or affected by HIV and AIDS. It might interest you to inquire as to, okay, what amounts to discrimination? According to the same Act, Section 6 states that denying or removing someone from treatment on the basis of their HIV status, it is discrimination. Failure to remove, eliminate, or ameliorate any obstacle that unfairly limits persons living with or affected by HIV and AIDS. Denying someone access to the use of public place or worship areas amounts to discrimination, or denying access to the use of communal place, residential space, or other social facilities amounts to discrimination. To add to that, denying a person access to education amounts to discrimination, because the school is a public place and everyone is allowed to attend school, whether they are HIV positive or they are not. This reminds me of a case of a 12-year-old boy who was transferred to a school. The mother disclosed his HIV status to a medical doctor who is supposed to be in the know of everything relating to HIV transmission, as well as the law that regulates HIV, the law that regulates discrimination and other things relating to HIV in Nigeria. And because of the fact that she reported to this doctor, her son was dismissed from school on the basis of his HIV status. It is a pure discrimination, and the law forbids such acts. The law prohibits against such acts. So this live streaming is primarily centered on letting us know, creating awareness around HIV and AIDS, around this law that prohibits discrimination. Because they say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but it is our duty to bring the provisions of the law to your understanding and break it down for you to understand that some of the things you do would or would not amount to discrimination of persons living with or affected by HIV and AIDS. There are other lots of things as it relates to being employed, denying someone employment on the basis of their HIV status. But we're going to divide this live streaming into two sections. The conversation on employment, workplace, and all that will be our next episode on this conversation around the laws regulating discrimination of persons living with or affected by HIV and AIDS. And like you've heard and like you know, and like you now know, discrimination is an abuse of human rights. Actually, who wants to be discriminated upon on the basis of anything, ethnicity or whatnot? So please, this is a clarion call for us to stop discrimination on the basis of persons' race, especially as it relates to HIV status. And if you decide to discriminate, for you to know it is a crime. There is a law in Nigeria that prohibits such actions, so that you'll be in the full know of the things you're about to get yourself into or the things you're about to engage with. Thank you very much for joining our live streaming. I remain your host, Ozobusolu. We'll see you same time next week as we discuss discrimination in the workplace and the necessary regulations that employers need to put in place to protect persons living with or affected with HIV. Thank you very much for joining us.